Attention, please. Eastern Airlines Flight 19, now ready for departure.
Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're entering the vacation kingdom of the world.
There's enough land here to hold all the ideas and plans we could possibly imagine. We call it Epcot. Will be our experimental prototype city of tomorrow.
Welcome to another episode of the Retro Disney World Podcast, taking you back to the vacation kingdom of the world, the way it was, and the way it is in your memories.
All right, everyone, welcome back. This is our next episode, episode number 3, Camping Cabins and Coonskins. With me tonight, as always, we've got JT, Hal, and Brian. Welcome aboard, guys.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey.
Hello. Everybody had a nice holiday. We're back. And we're going to start off this week getting to some corrections and comments, as always. We have some comments came in regarding the Contemporary Resort episode last month, and also regarding the Speedway. How we got some interesting emails. We kind of had like a little Twitter battle going on with animated Grand Prix raceways. I put together some satellite images, and we found out some interesting things about the Speedway, which we originally on the Tomorrowland episode said, hey, it expanded in 73.
Yeah.
But it didn't.
Yes. No. And definitely shout out to Marty Elchin for doing some research and getting us back on the right track, because like a lot of other people, I read the Wikipedia article that mentioned that it was updated in 73, and without any facts to counter that, thought it was real. And Marty went back and pulled some aerial photography, and then I went on the internet and found some other publicity photos from the era. And what we found out was, in fact, it was the same size as it was constructed in 71, and then the size was taken down in order to add Space Mountain. So
it was quite a considerable drop in 74 too, because they took out from the north side, and 2 bends in the south were taken out. We don't know why the north was taken out for any reason.
That's the weirdest one of all, because it looks like they took out a chicane in the north side, which when I was talking about how they like tried to pick little pieces off of like Grand Prix raceways, like that's one of the few chunks that was, an actual race thing.
Right.
Now, from a functional standpoint, when the cars are only going 8 miles an hour, there's really no reason for a chicane.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it's more of an annoyance than anything.
Yeah, and if you don't know what a chicane is, for the listeners, like in racing, it's usually like a mild turn that's put at the end of a straightaway, or sometimes after turns to slow cars down, so that way they don't go too fast when you hit like a bigger turn.
Right. Now, that chicane, just so everybody knows in reference where this would be, it would probably be somewhere between Dumbo and The Little Mermaid. That's how far, if you're referencing today's world, this is how far out the track went. And on top of that, the large curve. Now, we also noticed in the satellite that at that time in 74, they bought the train line came in or out, which I can't remember which way it was, but maybe that was in anticipation of the promise of a Tomorrowland station as well.
Yeah, because the Tomorrowland station is one of those things that was in various locations and various maps. There's a really great rendering of the 75 New Tomorrowland. It's a painting from an overhead view where your point of view is the hub, and then you're looking out, and you can see Space Mountain, and then immediately to the left of Space Mountain, you can actually see where the train station was supposed to be. There was actually concrete poured for that. So before the arcade was added, you could go down there, and there was basically some benches, like with sort of built-in seating that you could kind of sit down and hang out, which was a really cool space.
Right.
But that project ended up getting canceled, probably along with a lot of the other stuff that happened after the gas crunch.
Right.
So the train station never happened.
Never happened. And the Speedway stayed the same way from 74 all the way up to about 88, somewhere in there. They did the construction for the opening of Mickey's Birthday Land, and that north area, one of the turns got clobbered again. And then again in 2012, they took out the final turn even more in order to fit in Dumbo. So I think we need to maybe do a little more research and find out what the true length of the track was from the beginning and down to what it is now. If you go to retrodisneyworld.com, our website, I put together a satellite image that morphs over time of everywhere from 1971 up through 2014, so you can literally watch the Speedway sadly shrink before your eyes. So, but I don't know how. What do you think? 1,000 feet, 1,200 feet maybe lost?
It's amazing how much smaller it is. I mean, it looks like a good half of it is gone now.
Yeah, it easily. And it's funny. I was on it with my son last year, the year before, and you get on and you practically get right off. I was like, wait a minute, I just did this. It's so fast. So
yeah.
But again, thanks to Marty Alchin for hitting us up with that information. And just a note, we did update the Wikipedia article, so you should see some corrected information in there.
Sweet.
Yeah. So moving over to the contemporary, that was our last episode. We did get some information back, but I forgot to add something. I wanted to quiz you guys. And do you know what famous event happened at the contemporary? Does anybody?
I do.
You do?
Yes.
All right.
Are you talking about Nixon?
Yes, it is Nixon.
He's not a crook.
He's not a crook speech was done from the Contemporary Resort. So now, when we get to the Polynesian episode, I'll be surprised if How doesn't know the famous event that that resort played host to.
Just so people understand, it wasn't like Nixon was on vacation with his family there or something.
That's right.
He was addressing a convention that was there, like the Conference of Municipal Governments or something.
Right.
It was like a group of supporters, like a good audience. For him
he did not do that in one of those egg chairs with the map behind him and relaxing in the closets that
as they slid in the chest drawers. He wrote it right in.
So was his figure in the Hall of Presidents when he made that speech?
It was there when the park opened. It was
okay.
The Nixon figure was there when the park opened.
Because I remember reading anecdotes about how allegedly like the maintenance people would put handcuffs like on Nixon's hands because they're situated behind his back.
It's possible, but they've always added the current president as soon as they've come online since 71. But the first one to speak was Clinton. The first one with a speaking role was Clinton. And he actually recorded his own voice, and then Clinton, Bush, and now Obama have all done that in succession. So there's your Hall of Presidents moment for the night.
Now, speaking of chest of drawers and how you'll get to talk about the other event that happened at Polynesian in our Polynesian episode, you're gonna have to wait.
Which will be broadcast from Trader Sam's.
That's right. We got to get that one from
there.
So speaking of our chest of drawers, we did a little bit more research. We did get some emails regarding the location. We're going to talk a little later about the construction area for the drawers for the chest. But Brian, we did get some other people writing in about the earthquake-proof gingerbread house you spoke of that succumbed to monorail vibrations. And we got some emails asking us, wasn't the monorail designed and built on separate footings and foundations to prevent this from happening? Now,
that is partially true.
I know from my own experience, if you go in there and sit there, you can always feel that low grumbling. Now, I went and looked at construction photos very early when footings were being poured. I don't see any evidence of anything for that. I have some pictures. Okay, go ahead. You.
Yeah. The original design was for the monorail to be anchored to the building and go through the center of the concourse. How that would have worked in terms of crossing from one side of the concourse to another, I don't know. But originally, that was the design of the building. The engineers looked at it and told Roy, "There's no way this can be done. It would cause too much vibration, too many problems inside the hotel." And they wanted to move it outside the building. And Roy said the building will look stupid without a monorail going through it. So figure out how to, typical Walt's brother, just figure out how to get it done. So what they came up with was running it apart from the building, was not having it anchored to the building. So they're correct that there are separate footings. The monorail track itself is not actually connected to the building. But that doesn't prevent the monorail from causing vibrations. They're just not as intense as they as they originally were concerned about. But there are stories that I've read from people who were monorail operators when the building first opened in 1971, that the monorail vibrations coming through the building would cause bottles to fall on the concourse bar.
Wow.
So, I mean, the vibrations are there, and honestly, if you spend any time in the concourse, you can feel feel the monorail come through.
Right, it's like Jurassic Park, right? You get those little concentric
Keep in mind,
circles.
this is the U.S. Steel built building that they kind of flopped on. So I mean, this isn't like
everything they promised about the building was inaccurate.
Yeah.
So add this to the list, and so to the person who emailed us about that, you are correct. Things were done to minimize the vibrations, but as with everything else at Disney, it's an acceptable level of vibration, not no vibration.
Right, absolutely. So we did have one other thing regarding, we had another individual write us about our contemporary Shag and Flare film, which we went through the last episode. And about 3:53 in the movie, somebody had pointed this out as well. I've got multiple emails on this. We forgot to mention it. Off to the right of the contemporary, you can actually see the construction of Space Mountain. So that portion of the film must date from 1974, because we obviously know the opening date of Space Mountain. So if you're interested in seeing from afar what it looked like during construction, you can take a look at that. I think that wasn't into what they call the funnel phase or something after that, when they started putting the things around the top. I forget, there was a funny name for it.
You got me on that one.
I forget what it was.
I will agree. Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, and
the inverted funnel or something is what they call it. Anyway, all right. We'll move on from funnels. We've got to get over to the main topic. So, this month's camping, cabins, and coonskins can only mean one thing. We are going over to Fort Wilderness. Now, for those of you who don't know, Fort Wilderness did not open on October 1st, 1971. The story goes that during construction, somebody approached Card Walker and said, "Hey, how's that campground going?" And he replied, "What campground?" And later on, they had to get going on it pretty quick, and hence it opened November 19th, 1971. So, JT, I know this is a love of yours of Fort Wilderness.
Yes,
you spent
correct.
a lot of time there. I know you're going to kind of lead us this month, but tell us a little bit what we got and where we're going with this tonight.
The interesting, my time period with Fort Wilderness, like I've said on the first episode, kind of began in the mid 80s. So I was never there when it opened. But from what I've read on the opening day, lots of things were different. There were only 232 campsites there. And add on to the fact now we had 481 added in 73 and 113 more in 1976. So it was smaller. And the other thing that kind of surprised me too is going from that whole is it ready in the what campground thing, not a lot was set up. They had a temporary reception outpost, a temporary bike barn. Everything was kind of just thrown together just sort of to appease the campers. So now I'm curious, did any of you go RVing in the 70s?
I did not, but I'm looking at this brochure of a family that does, and it doesn't,
because it was from what I've gathered and talking to relatives, and that it was big time then. I mean, that was kind of the thing to do. So that's sort of why it happened. I think if Disney would have opened in the 80s, you might not have a Fort Wilderness now, because it wasn't as, I don't know, it didn't seem as big then. But
it looks like, from what I have read, it's like Winnebago. They started as a company in 65 or 66, and we kind of went from from the Hitch trailers, like the pop-ups, to the full-blown RVs right around that time. So they were definitely right in the sweet spot. The interstate system was just getting built out, so it was actually possible to drive your RV from one state down to Florida in order to hit the campground. And also, I think one of the interesting things is if you go back to the very first plans with Walt sketches, it says campground.
Oh, he wanted that.
Yeah, it was in there from the very beginning.
Yeah, so how they missed it, I
oops.
check the validity of that story.
Yeah, and I guess from a standpoint of we need to get some rooms and some guests staying on property, but hotels aren't our thing, and we don't have a lot of money to build stuff. just clearing out some spaces for a campground and building a couple of buildings with some services stuff is certainly a cheap and easy way to get another, 262 rooms on property.
Absolutely, and
without a lot of effort.
The availability for expansion was tremendous too, because it's on 650 acres. That's a lot of land to do a lot of things with. So they definitely had the ability, and you're absolutely right, Hal. I mean, it's a cheap way to get people on site, and I know the attraction to a lot of people is that you're close to Disney, but you're away. And I think that drove a lot of people in as well.
What's interesting with this place, and I really haven't camped that many places other than Disney, but from what you hear people saying is, I'm pretty sure from opening until now, it isn't like camping at a normal, Yogi Bear Park or any of those kind of places. It is more high end. It is, nicer places. There's full hookups that, you can get cable and things like that. And then the other thing that is big is their comfort stations, which is, if you have a camper or a pop-up without a bathroom, there's these comfort stations located between the loops. They're always perfectly clean. Like ever since I was a kid, I remember going in, they were like mint condition. You go in, it looks like brand new, and they still do to this day. They refurbished them a number of years ago, but they're always perfectly clean, and that's kind of that almost has an old Disney feel to it, of that high-end service type thing.
Right. Now, another interesting thing is I started going through a lot of the old brochures, and I found that Fort Wilderness always came at the end of all the resorts. It's like, if you really want to, you can camp here. Mm-hmm. Did you ever notice that? They're always on the back. In fact, even one of these, I don't know what the date on this is, I'd have to check, but after they talk about Fort Wilderness, it actually says more luxury accommodations lie tucked away, and going on to talk about other places to stay. It's kind of interesting that the after the fact thought just seems to be everywhere. It was very late and everything.
And I think it's like that too, even now. I mean, even talking with you guys about it, like most of you just kind of popped in for something, went to River Country, went to a store. It's not even a place to visit, where when you do go there, and we've stayed there many times, we invite people over, oh, hey, come check out our place, we'll go to dinner. It doesn't have that Disney resort feel, if that makes sense. Like, yeah. I've stayed at All Stars, I've stayed at, the Lodge. You go to Fort Wilderness, you almost feel like you are separate from the world, like quieter, less, high speed, just very relaxing is the feel I get.
You feel like you're off property.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Really, you feel like you're off property. And, as Todd's referring to, the first couple of years, there really was nothing there. Mm-hmm. With the railroad not starting until 73, and then Pioneer Hall and more of the fit outs, the trails and all not being built till the following year. Those first couple of years, you really were in the wilderness.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. You mentioned Pioneer Hall. That didn't open until 74, so you're a good 3 years after that. And one of the crazy things I heard on somewhere, I forget which podcast or which website I read it, Pioneer Hall initially opened to show those Disney nature films, not the new ones, but like the old,
16 millimeter ones. Yeah.
Yeah, like you'd go in there and you'd watch a film about, whatever, deer in the woods, whatever, and it just didn't hit, it right. Was like, just, we need something in here. So that's when the whole hoop-de-doo dinner show sort of came about.
Now, did Meadows Trading Post, was that open originally too? Or I would assume that came later too, right?
Yeah, the Meadow Complex, what year did we see that? I totally forget now what year. That was a later complex, a later thing, which I was surprised to read about, because that's kind of like the main pool there, and I don't know if there was really even a pool opening day then, if that came later.
The train went there, so it had to be sometime that the train started, which didn't begin operation, as we pointed out, to 73. So it'd be interesting to find out if Meadows was open there. So.
And we're going to talk about the train on a future episode, I think, in-depthly, we thought,
In-depth.
Right?
Why don't we brush on a couple points of it?
Okay.
Right now, we can go. I did some research on it, but I'll be honest to our listening audience, it warrants a full podcast. We did some initial research on it. There's a lot to be uncovered, a lot to people to talk about, and I think we need to dedicate it, maybe get some guest stars on as well. But yeah, it began operation in 73.
And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Fort Wilderness used to have its own steam train.
Own steam train, right. It was the only Disney resort, and I believe to this day, that has its own attraction. You would pay $1 to ride it all day if you were staying at any other Disney resort. If you stayed there, you could ride it for free. But it was almost 3 miles long, twice the length of the Magic Kingdom. It was a much smaller gauge track, 30 inches instead of 36. And the engines were smaller. There's rumor out there that they were 4/5 scale, and that is just not true. They were smaller engines called saddle tankers, if you will. Essentially, the saddle was the sides of the engine. On each side of the boiler is where they held the water. There was a problem with that, and they couldn't hold enough water. That's one of the reasons that the train went downhill, but not the only reason. So this train stopped off at the Meadows Trading Post. It went down all the way down to the main entrance area. What was that called, JT? Down all the way down.
The reception outpost.
Reception outpost, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a covered building. There's a parking lot there for normal people that don't have a camper, and then there's also like a big covered awning you drive under, and there's like a guy sitting there, and it's meant for RVing basically.
Okay.
So.
It went down there, and it took you directly to River Country. So it was a great way. In fact, I heard that at some point they had to start putting rubber mats in the bottom so that the people who were getting off or all dripping wet wouldn't get the train wet. So
yeah,
but which was just interesting. Now, the reason the railroad went downhill is that what I've heard is that Disney really didn't know how to build a railroad very well. When the Magic Kingdom was built, they had people come in, but for this, it was put together by their own team. The rest of the rails and the ties were not secured down. Nothing was tamped down, and essentially through just the temperature changes and the Florida, weather and rain just started to erode things. Tracks were getting messed up, and it didn't last very long. And in fact, it closed. It ran up to February 1980. Actually, is when it lasted. So about 7 years, and then everything was pulled up, and the trains were put into storage, and as well as the cars. Now, you guys have seen some of the cars around over the years, right? Famous locations. Tell them about how. Couple places.
So one of the famous locations they became the ticket booths for Pleasure Island when that was a separately operating thing.
Right. Yep. And now, do you guys know where the engines went and some of the train cars?
No, I do not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they all went. Fortunately, all have been taken. They fell into disrepair. They've all been taken by private collectors. But John Lasseter actually owns one complete train in his own personal collection, which is pretty cool. So
must be nice.
Yeah, he's good.
Sure, I'll take the old Fort.
Just truck that thing over.
Throw it in my yard.
Exactly. So, which is interesting. But the rest of them are in hands of private collectors, which is good to hear that they're around. But yeah, sadly, we're never going to see that railroad. But when you really think about it, it's pretty unique. That you could, get around. And I think that was kind of the idea before the trams came into play, which I know, JT, you're going to go over here in a second.
Yeah, I'll kind of hit on the transportation.
Yeah, go on the trams.
That's one of the biggest things that is the issue at Fort Wilderness, transportation. When you stay there, you're kind of out at your site, out in the middle of nowhere, and you're like, how do I get, say, to the Magic Kingdom? You have to get from your site to a boat, to a bus, somewhere like that. So they had these trams that drove around, and actually what they were the same kind of cars that took you on the backlot tour, the parking lots in the different parks and things like that. What happened, though, was I remember this as a kid. They didn't have those flip down sides. They were just wide open. And I remember we're going to miss it. We would run up full speed, jump on it as it's driving away, and hop on as it's rolling. So I'm assuming at some point somebody had to get run over. That's just me, because it was, you would just or you'd hop off at your stop before the thing came to a complete stop, and then they would, keep moving. So there was a point in the early 90s, I remember when we hit that visit and the trams were just gone, and it was all the Disney buses then. So that's what's there now, is the full-size buses.
So now if you park in that front parking lot, you get on a bus and drive around to the back?
Yeah, if you
say
you want to go to Hoop-de-Doo.
So if I go to the Hoop-de-Doo review,
you have to drive to the reception outpost. You have to go catch a bus, which stops
loop
almost.
Bus, right?
Yeah, it's internal loop. They all stay in there. It almost stops it. I don't know. It depends which bus you catch. There's three different lines.
Yeah. When we go, we've taken my son to the Chippendale
Yeah.
campfire, which is a lot of fun.
Which you're stealing from us campers because you're going for free to something that we pay for.
Now, are those like
paid-
dancers with no shirts and bow ties, or are those?
No. There's legit somewhere stored at Fort Wilderness Chippendale costumes that Chris Farley didn't wear, like the real guys, like Chippendale, and you can roast marshmallows and they show a Disney movie every night, which is now copied at every Disney resort.
Right. That was the original place to do it, and it is a lot of fun. But what we do is we go and park at the Contemporary or park at the Polynesian, take the monorail, or take the boat. It's a little more relaxing. Then we all just walk down the meadows. It's not that long of a walk, and
no,
we enjoy it. It's really nice.
As an aside, Disney actually recommends and requests that people who make reservations for the Hoop-de-Doo review take a boat from the Magic Kingdom. They tell you to get yourself to the Magic Kingdom and then take the boat from there. That's their actual recommended transportation route.
I'm doing something recommended for one of the very first times. Okay.
The other, you're doing it correctly. The other transportation you can do there, and I don't know when this started, but I remember for as long as I've been going in the 80s, golf carts are the thing at the Fort Wilderness.
Yeah.
You can go rent a golf cart, which it's for the cost of it to pay Disney, you could almost stay at a regular Hampton Inn for the night, but you pay that much, like, $60 a day, and you just drive around on a golf cart, no license required or anything.
The number of people that bring their own golf carts now and decorate.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they travel with RVs and golf carts. It's almost like they tow them behind, and they decorate them. We've always been there around the holidays. The Halloween time, and all the different RVs are decorated literally like homes. I mean, lights glowing, and the golf carts have "Boo y'all," all these different signs on them, and there's skeleton lights hanging from them, and it's
intense.
Very community oriented, and you know that a lot of people know everybody else.
They and they're when you bring your own golf cart, you can smoke any Disney golf cart. I've been run past many times driving the Disney golf cart because they govern them to a certain speed, and they're wimpy compared to the personal golf carts there. So
that's a Disney leisurely speed, right?
Just like the water sprites.
Water sprite, right? Yes. There's governors on there, yeah. So. All right, so we went over Pioneer Hall, Trails End Restaurant, or like as I like to call it, the Buffeteria. Have anybody eaten there? I've been there.
Yeah, I've been there breakfast and dinner.
I've been there for lunch.
It's a nice place. You got to get to it, but once you're there, it's a decent deal. Yeah.
There's a lot of good food. I ate myself silly there one night. It was pretty good stuff. Now, right next door, Pioneer Hall, we've got the Hoop-de-Doo. Now, you may shame me for this, JT. I'm just one who doesn't enjoy that type of entertainment, but I know that
it's a cheesy humor. It really is.
It is.
It's one of the best places, though, because by the time the show starts, if you take advantage of the sangria, you are good to go.
So the show looks completely different.
Yes.
One of I have not seen it yet, although it is now on my to-do list because I've had a number of friends see it the last couple of years that really say, you really ought to see it once. It's a lot of fun. And then they rave about the food, that the strawberry shortcake for dessert.
It's the same old Disney Western food. You get it like.
But what I remember about it is when I first started reading the Burn Bombs guides after my first trip to Disney in the 80s, but before I was able to go back as an adult by myself, I would live through these Burn Bomb guides. And the Burn Bomb guides used to go berserk over two things: Tonga Toast at the Polynesian and the Hoop-de-Doo musical review. And every Burn Bombs guide that came out every year was, if you do nothing else, make sure you get over to see the Hoop-de-Doo musical review. So it's been in my my to-do list forever. But I think I've read, isn't it one of like the longest running stage shows in like American theater history or something like that?
I think Hall of Presidents gets the official nod, right? Even though it's audio animatronic.
Well, I know Carousel Progress.
Carousel Progress. I'm getting confused.
Yeah, sorry. Carousel Progress gets the theater designation, but there's something about it being the longest running live entertainment show somewhere.
And they just did some big lawsuit against it because they took a song originally that somebody wrote. I don't remember any of the details specifically with this, but literally just recently in the past couple of years, they changed one of their main songs in it, which and they had to pay royalties to somebody for the past 30 some years for using their song illegally. So
damn copyright laws.
I know, they got them.
Now, JT,
And
the Melvin the Moose Breakfast show.
I never went to this,
You didn't
but
get
I
to that,
did that story on the site because I saw somebody selling Melvin himself. I don't know if we mentioned this on another podcast or not, but the Theme Park Connection, I think it was, had it for sale, and it was a breakfast show. Basically, Hoop-Dee-Doo, the Pioneer Hall, is useless during the day. The doors are closed. They have practice in there, but you walk by, it's just a big, closed-up building. So they tried to put something in there like a breakfast-type show, and they had a big audio animatronic moose hanging on the wall, and they sang and they did all this stuff, and it was a breakfast show. But I never went, never had any experience with it.
Right.
Wait, the Melvin from Country Bear Jamboree?
It was really similar looking. Yeah, if you look on our site, the stories, like, I think in the fall I posted it. He looked just like he had a big moose with antlers and all that stuff, and he was full on audio animatronic and everything. That's about as far as I could get. There's a YouTube video of it too.
It's like Bugaboo Breakfast or something, like a Bugaboo Steakhouse for breakfast.
Yeah,
The
and
moose
I mean,
talking
it's
to
one
you.
of those things. I kind of jealous, like I didn't get to see it, but it looked very Fort Wildernessy. Like they had the same outfits that they had on, the waiters had on during Hoop-Dee-Doo. It looked like overalls, all that stuff, but it looked kind of fun. I don't know.
No, you also had a very unique aspect to this resort, which was the traveling resupply truck.
I never saw this either, but
I saw the
pictures
pictures of it. It's amazing. And it's a brilliant idea because you were just talking about how the transportation, you get on a tram if you needed something. So this truck would literally drive around with, sundries and grits and food and God knows what else in there.
The gift shops at Fort Wilderness are unique in the fact they do have camping supplies. They have charcoal. They have, they
Mosquito
have
repellent.
Yeah, just stuff like that. You can buy the sticks to roast marshmallows, but then apparently when it first opened, it was like an old time truck, and it had almost like a pickup truck bed on the back. It looked like a rolling store, and it would pull up to different sites, and you could just buy stuff right there, fresh fruit and whatever else you needed for your site. Which it's kind of cool, but they don't do that anymore either.
Yeah,
so
that's gonna make you walk now. So
yeah.
All right, JT, so a little about the recreation there. We all know we had river country, but there's a lot of other things to do as well.
Different things at the fort that kind of made it that unique feel. They had a swamp trail, which that was kind of before my time. You said you went on that, didn't you, Todd?
Which the swamp trail? Yeah,
Yeah.
I took in 1996. We took a horse. The horse rides. And I remember an armadillo cut right in front of us.
Yeah, those run all over.
They're all over. It just runs out.
Exotic wildlife.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
and there's deer. It's kind of an interesting area. There's just animals everywhere. The other thing was it did have the classic Disney beach. You could go swimming in it. Another cool thing I remember was sitting on the beach. You can see the fireworks to the Magic Kingdom, and they piped in the music there. So that was kind of a different. It made you feel like you were close to the park, but you still were out in the middle of the woods.
Right.
They had a really unique, and it's gone now. It was a playground that had like teepees kind of all sort of built into it around it. Like you could go and hide out in a teepee and pretend you're an Indian. I remember playing there when I was a kid. And then moving kind of back towards that Pioneer Hall is the classic. It's gone now. The lawnmower trees. Anybody know what that is?
I do.
Go ahead.
I got to see it before they took it out last year.
It's a shame it's gone.
Yeah, I was over there a couple years ago, as I mentioned, for lunch, and no sooner did we get off the boat there to head into to the restaurant than I saw the lawnmower tree off to the side. So it was when they had bought the property, they discovered this tree where a self-push lawnmower from probably the 20s or 30s was there, and the tree stump had actually grown up around it, so it was embedded into the tree. And at one point they actually had to cut the tree down, but they left the stump there with the lawnmower in it until last year, when we were told that it had rotted to the point where they needed to take the stump out, which meant that the lawnmower tree went away.
Exactly.
It's a shame.
Yep, and that's kind of on your way to, like we mentioned, River Country, which if you don't know the story of River Country now, we do have a story on our site. We got sent to us kind of what it is now, which it's we're going to have a whole show on it, but it was the first themed water park ever. And being near Fort Wilderness, people had to come into Fort Wilderness to get to it. Had that old swimming hole feel. It felt like it belonged at Fort Wilderness, but now it's been completely shut down, abandoned, and you can still see it when you take a boat to whatever driving by there.
So for some daring adventure people, you can really still go see it, but we're not going to. go
Yeah,
into that.
it's there's been many documented viewings of it. People still go in there. I'm waiting for the day when they demolish it completely, but it's just sitting there and being overgrown.
Yeah, I have a theory, and I don't know. I mean, obviously there's a lot of protected wetlands, and I'm just wondering if the demolition and the cost of doing that and protecting the runoff into the lake, is it? I don't know. Is letting it sit there rot better than demolishing it? I don't know.
The one thing I see, the trend I seem to see, if you look at the attractions in the parks, it's like unless something's going to go back in that spot, it's like they just don't want to spend the money to demolish it.
Right.
Makes sense.
That's really the biggest thing. It's like until there's a replacement slated, it's like they'll just let it sit there because it costs nothing to just let it sit there and rot.
Now, this has got to be the longest one that they've ever let sit for anything.
When did it close? Like 99, 98, something around there?
I think it was 98.
It was 98, but
Yeah.
I'm in construction. I can tell you the demolition is almost as expensive as construction. And when you do demolish it, you've got gigantic plastic slides and tubes that you then have to figure out how to ecologically dispose of. I mean, there's a lot involved that it just doesn't make any sense. So Hal's right. It doesn't make any sense for them to knock it down.
And that was all natural fed water too. So just
right. So until they decide to build a vacation club complex there,
there you go,
or a new resort, which it's big enough that they could do that too.
What was supposed to go between that never was, right? Buffalo Junction, right?
Yes.
Buffalo Junction never came around, and that would be a great spot. Now, I've got to read something here that I found. I don't know what this came from. It's a little hard to read, so you've got to bear with me here. It seems to be coming from some sort of guide to Disney World, but we caught something on here that was really, really interesting. So I'm going to read this here, and then we'll let Hal and Brian discuss. It says, the acreage appeared even more beautiful as the brothers drove into the forest on a single dirt track leading to a small private fishing lodge on the shore of Bay Lake. So, what does that tell us about Brian?
Well, Roy's cabin.
Roy's cabin. Yeah. What else, right? And it says, soon after it was decided the campground would be located in the general area where the fishing lodge then stood, and then development would be undertaken in the area's natural beauty. So, now, Hal, I know you did some research on this. I know our listeners have been dying to hear about Roy's cabin and what the truth is behind. We've got some aerial imagery from 1969 that shows the exact precise location of a building on the edge of Bay Lake. We see photos of Roy walking near a lodge that seems to represent the same size and shape that we can see from the aerial photography. But you did some digging to, kind of look at the myths of him staying there and some other things. What'd you find?
So even before it was the myth of Roy's cabin, it was the myth of Walt's cabin.
Right.
And for years, it's like people in the Orlando area had tried to track down this mythological cabin that Walt's, allegedly stayed in. And then I think over the course of time, it kind of morphed into Roy's cabin. And we saw the photos from the Florida State Archives that looked like, there's a cabin. Mm-hmm. But I think I guess I'll let Brian tell part two of it, and then I'll come in with what I found, and then So Brian, tell us what we thought Roy's cabin was.
Well, Roy's cabin was, to our knowledge, was an existing fishing cabin, fishing lodge on one of the properties that they bought that bordered Bay Lake. In the location of what is now part of Fort Wilderness. And there are pictures that exist of Roy from the Florida Archives having some meetings there early on, while they were planning the development of the property and while the property was under construction. That's most of what we know.
So there was that. There was also this myth that Walt actually stayed there, like during the times when he was down. And I had friends that had spent some time driving around trying to find this thing. And I think what we ultimately, what we found out based on some research is that there was a Roy's cabin, but Roy's cabin was actually in Bay Hill. When they decided to take executives and move them down to Orlando to finish out the construction of Walt Disney World, they rented the company actually bought like 6 small houses in Bay Hill, which was the section that would ultimately end up being owned by Jack Nicklaus. So in Orlando, if you were an executive mucky muck, there were two places that you would probably live. One was Windermere, and then the other was Bay Hill. So Disney bought 6 houses in there, put the execs in. So Roy Disney had his cabin next to Joe Fowler's cabin, so that way they could just have meetings at whatever hour they wanted and just go across and have tea and breakfast and talk about where the construction was. So it was really handy for that. At the end of construction, I think there was a news story that talks about Roy watching the Disney special on the opening from that cabin, and then after that he flew back to California and then shortly died thereafter. But Joe Fowler actually stayed in that house up until the point that he died, I think in the 2000s.
Yes.
So he stayed put the entire time in that area in Orlando. But as we found out later on, it's like this. Yes, there was a cabin that was there on property. It was an old fishing lodge that existed, and then we found the other article. Todd found that article that mentioned it. And then I actually just read a passage in Reality Land that mentioned that the construction manager for Fort Wilderness set up his trailer next to the cabin. They thought that they might be able to use it as a construction office, but by the time they got in there, it actually was no longer structurally sound. Oh. So the cabin was demolished. But there was a real thing. It's like, to our knowledge, neither Roy nor Walt ever stayed there, but the cabin was a real cabin. It existed, and it is no longer there.
Right. Joe Fowler died in 1993, by the way.
93, okay.
93. And for those interested, I know we've got, so where is the exact location of this cabin? Essentially, if you're coming off of the dock at Fort Wilderness, after you go through the beach, it would have been on your left-hand side, just about 20-30 feet in on the left-hand side is what we understand. This could be the construction trailer. The picture I'm referencing, which we can certainly post with this episode, comes from 1969 or so, so into the construction. There are some older aerial photography we're going to try to do research on that dates to the 50s that may really hone in on it a little bit better. But so that's the legend of Roy's cabin, right?
Yeah, there is a smaller cabin on property, which you can see in the pictures. That's kind of located right up to the edge of Bay Lake.
Right.
And apparently that was something that was built just to hold like the canoes and like some of the watercraft there.
Yeah.
So there is an actual cabin like right on the edge of the lake, which you can actually see on Google Maps, I think, and someone's got some close-up pictures. But that's not it. That is not it either.
Right. There was some talk. I think when we first talked about in one of the first episodes, I said, "Oh, it's over in the far southeast quadrant," and no, it was much closer from what we do to where Pioneer Hall and the entrance stuff is today. So. Interesting stuff. Well, there we go. So everybody that's been waiting for the Roy's cabin, and Brian, you didn't have to mention it in this episode. It just came out.
Well, Roy's cabin is like cream. It always rises.
That's it.
It just popped in there like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
So JT, I have a question as someone who never stayed there. Like,
yes.
If I didn't have an RV, did I have any other options for staying at Fort Wilderness? Could I pitch a tent? Like, was it the absolute cheapest way to?
I mean, there is the tent thing. There's a whole section that is just tents, and a lot of times Boy Scouts will stay there, and church groups, and it's just a big field, and you go. It has its own bus stop, but you go out in this field and you pitch a tent. You can also use a tent on a plain old campsite. Like, you can rent a big full-size RV one with cable hookup and everything and put your tent there. But starting in '86, Disney struck a deal with Fleetwood, and they built these, what they called Wilderness Homes. They basically looked like, I don't want to say a double wide, but kind of a similar type thing. It looked like a motorhome without wheels, and you'd go in there. And I remember I stayed in it a few times. You walked in, it had a living room, a full kitchen, and then a separate bathroom, like with a shower, everything like that, and a back bedroom with a door that closed, so you could sleep 6 there comfortably. And if you jump ahead out of the retro era, in the late 90s, early 2000s, they started upgrading to what they are now. They look like actual log cabins now. But back then, they looked like almost like a very 80s motorhome without wheels. They didn't really, they looked, kind of dated. So.
That's cool. Actually, so the tent thing really intrigues me.
You can still do that today.
Yeah, I've thought about doing it. You can go to Disney on the cheap if you go in the right time of the year. I mean, you can get a tent campsite for like $30 a night. Pitch your tent there, and then you go and you're in the parks, for whatever if you want to.
Yeah, for all those people who say I'm not into frills. Okay.
Yeah,
shot that way.
And you probably have one of the nicer bathroom than anywhere you've ever stayed. I mean, with the comfort station, you just take your little golf cart or walk over there, and you got a nice bathroom. It's all to yourself and everything. So,
what are the mosquitoes like? That's my only.
I've never had mosquito problems there. Disney does do. If you look at our River Country story, they do the chicken testing where they have chickens on property, and they test them to see what bugs are biting, and they spray. Based on the different bugs that are biting the chickens they test on. It's like the myth of the cats that run around Disneyland at night to eat the mice.
Now, okay, I have a conflicting information for the mosquitoes because we went there and started to get eaten alive. I don't know if it was just because it was at Meadows.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, down by Meadows Trade Post, and we were with we took a family friend with us, and her parents were out to dinner, and she's 4 years old with my son who's 4, and goes, I'm allergic to mosquitoes, and we ran over to Meadows and got the spray and all that stuff.
$20 bug spray.
Oh yeah, very expensive. So. I don't know. We did get quite a bit of mosquitoes. So I don't know how.
My visits have only been summer and spring break. I mean, I've never gone in this. I'm a work in education, so it's not. I don't go in those off-season times. But I think it depends. But never a problem. But the homes we were talking about, the cabins. It is one of the few places on Disney property where you can get for a decent rate your own house almost. I mean, it's if you want to deal with the internal busing and that sort of thing. You actually have a full kitchen. You can do that like they show on the promo videos. You can bake a turkey in your kitchen the day before you go into the Magic Kingdom.
Only a matter of time before they're converted to Disney Vacation Club.
They very well could be, but right now, I mean, that's one of the few places we do stay when we go is the house, because you get a house and you go out on that deck. You don't hear a single thing, and there's no all-star music, bright lights and everything. It's just very chill and relaxing. You can have your own barbecue.
I gotta check that out because I got to stay at the tree houses a couple of times, and that was my all-time favorite.
Now you stay at the old original tree house.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. All right, we got that. That's where we stayed.
Yeah. So if there's something similar to that still around, I'm so down with going to check.
It is very chill. That's the biggest thing with it. Yeah. You are out in the middle of the woods, and you don't feel like you're at Disney. Once you leave the park, you kind of wind down. But I always feel like when I stay at like a Pop Century or something for like a quick stay, it doesn't ever wind down. I leave the park, you go to Pop Century, it is still all in your face Disney. But Fort Wilderness has its own. It feels very brown.
Well, not only that too. The effect of the characters and the theming is done so well that they don't stand out. Like you said, it blends in. It's just
a slightly larger chipmunk running around. Right?
It is slightly larger, yeah.
Or Mickey
Brian,
with a rifle.
Didn't you have a story about Airstream trailers there?
Well, before they built the cabins in 1980, what was that, 86?
Yes.
Sometime a few years before that, they set up like a dozen Airstream trailers, which they, for all intents and purposes, were a test before they put the cabins in. And you could rent those, which was obviously revolutionary at that point because all you could do before that was rent a campsite. I shouldn't say that. There was an original cabin on site. One cabin, unair conditioned, no bathroom. It was near a comfort station that they allowed to remain, and they rented it. And it could sleep up to, I think, 5 people. But it was available for like $15 a night, which was
like a failed thing, wasn't it? They like attempted to do it, or they were going to put multiples, and it just didn't catch on.
There was a one standalone offbeat, and it obviously in the Florida heat and unair conditioned wooden cabin from April until October was probably not a very fun place to be.
No. Now, inflation calculator, $15. Where are we?
Oh, come on now. I'm going to guess in the 70 range, but I'm going to check right
all right,
now.
we're checking. This is
A live check
exactly
of the
inflation. This is up to the minute.
yeah.
Oh, listen to the computer in the background is hard at work calculating.
I'm going to use 1983 as our base
right.
point. $35 a night.
$35 a night. Wow.
Yeah.
I will say though, I think some of the, if we go financial with the money, some of the richest people that go to Disney stay at Fort Wilderness with some of the RVs you see. I mean, it's like you almost get like to the point where you're jealous because they're chilling and they got a flat screen TV hidden behind a panel that has like the time machine in it, and they're at their RV there, and you're like, what? You know, your RV is like $100,000 rolling home. You know,
Right.
and you're worrying about your golf cart that's $50 a night.
As you know, JT, it's more than $100,000. Those, I mean, they're basically buses. They're basically gigantic motor coaches.
I'm jealous of the $100,000 ones, let alone the $2 million ones.
I know a couple of people who have those, school bus sized motor homes. I don't want to say elderly, retired people, who. That's how they spend their winter, is traveling around in the RV, and they will go to Disney I think Disney lets you stay there for a maximum of 21 days, I think is the limit, because they don't want somebody moving in there. But I think the limit's 21 days, and they'll go down for like 2.5 weeks. They never set foot in the parks, but they'll set the RV up there and spend the week, spend 2-3 weeks down there.
And if you check in as Edna and Earl and then Bonnie and somebody else, you can stay 42 days if you stretch it right.
There you go.
Exactly.
You got it.
All right. Well, JT, thanks for your research on this and your personal experiences. It's great stuff. So if anybody has any questions on this, and again, we'll do a little more detailed diving in on the train in a future episode as well as River Country. I know a lot of you are going to write in and say, hey, you didn't talk enough about it, but don't fear not. We will get there. So, JT, we're going to pass the baton right back over to you for viewer mail. What do we got this month?
Candler Hobbs wrote us about the chest of drawers construction station, I will call it. There was a spot where they built the drawers that were going to be slid in the rooms that went on the Contemporary and the Polynesian, and he had found a story on Imagineeringdisney.com that actually shows where they are located. It's actually still there, which surprised me. I was kind of like, wow, I wonder what they use it for now. But
merchandise.
Something. Yeah, frozen. It's frozen merchandise.
It's frozen merchandise. Frozen merchandise. I don't even know if it actually is Disney owned and operated, but yeah, it is still there. It's just to the northeast of I'm going to call it Port Orleans and Dixie Landings. Gives me a time capsule.
1500 Live Oak Lane if you'd like to go check it out and see if there's any drawers still there. But it's out there, and that's Candler wrote us in at podcast@retrodisneyworld.com to let us know that. So thank you for that.
And I did some other digging with the aerial photography. I decided to try to figure out where it was and what it looked like and when it was built. And the 1969 photos do show it being built. And in one of, I think it was 71 or so, the drawers are all outside. You can see them lined up ready for installation. I think it was April 1971. And it's really interesting because in the photo, I had tweeted that out. You can see a good 20, 30 or more outside of the building all ready to roll. And there's also some information on what actually went on inside the building from the general offices, and the path that all of the different steel came in this end and this product came in that end, and how it flowed through the building, and out came the drawer on the other end. So really some interesting stuff. So. All right, now we did get another email in this month that we wanted to discuss. It came in actually fairly close to our recording night here. George Taylor from Imagineering.com, I'm sorry, Imagine Nerding, wrote into us. Yeah, I'm getting that completely botched up there. But he mentioned episode 2, which was our contemporary, that that the Vacation Kingdom map was not part of the original decor of the contemporary or the Polynesian. Now, he cites some stuff that in 1972, the refurb of the contemporary hotel, because a lot of the material and stuff didn't stand up. New carpeting, new drapes, new color scheme, vinyl wallpaper, and that's when the Magic Kingdom mural, the giant mural of the entire world was added. Now, from what we've gathered, and in the U.S. Steel video, you see the child run into the room, and behind them is the map, and that was actually pre-opening. So we're going to call out George here a little bit. We're going to try to do some digging on our side and see which side of this is the correct side. What do you guys think? You've seen the video. We've got lots of pictures.
I'm going to say that's a good guess and thought by George from the Greatest Online Show claiming that. But I don't know. If the U.S. Steel video, I think that is the smoking gun of the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I don't know. Just watch the video. The proof is there.
Yeah, the kid runs in practically squealing with glee that behind him is a map of the kingdom, and it's clearly the Paul Hartley map. I will say, though, that I don't disagree that there might have been a refurb in 72, just judging by U.S. Steel again. Well, we talked about that, right? How you said, because in one of the films you said we're not looking at the original carpet. We're looking
most definitely. Now I'll back off on that, because when I did some double checking, it's like the carpet that was laid down when Bob Hope steps off to do that dedication in November is the same one that we see later on in the 70s.
Okay.
So but certainly the rooms were utterly and completely redone, because what started out as a very super modern room on the inside that looked not wildly different from the contemporary, like suddenly became completely different in that, I'm sorry, not wildly different from the Polynesian. It's like the Polynesian rooms and the contemporary interiors, the furniture and stuff looked very, very similar. It was all ultra modern. And then around 73, we start to see these changes where they start adding the Mary Blair style murals in the rooms and really starting to like add a lot more of that Mary Blair look into the rooms, where before they were all super modern. So they were trying to get a hold of like, how do we take this Grand Canyon concourse and like try to interplay it throughout the rest of the hotel.
No, and I agree that I've seen a picture before where there's two people on a bed and behind them is the map and in the blue color scheme that George mentions here. But one thing I want to point out that is a point here is that if it was the fall of 1972, we're a full year after. Now, why would they hang a map with resorts that may not materialize? When did we learn that those resorts, the Asian, the Persian, and the Venetian, weren't going to be there? So why would they take the effort at that point to hang a map a year after opening?
Yeah,
that weren't going to exist. So we've got some digging. We've got some challenges.
George has some more digging to do too.
I
listen to Communicore. I like their podcast, but George, I'm going to say no. I disagree.
Yeah, so far I'm going to go with you on that. We're going to have to do some further research here and get back to you. So if anybody out there has any additional information, and I'll throw the a nod out to last podcast we had Chad Lincecum of wdwmap.com on, and for those of you who don't know what the Paul Hartley map is, take a look over there, and you can he has digitally reproduced the Paul Hartley map that we're speaking of that hung on the walls in the contemporary and the Polynesian. So if you'd like to get your own copy on canvas, you can head over there. And also,
I think that'll settle the debate if you just buy your own map.
Buy your own map, hang it up at any time of the year, any room you want, any year you want. It looks
refurb
good.
Or not.
Exactly. You can also get a discount too if you go to www.map.com/retro WDW. So Chad will hook you up with a nice discount for that. So, all right. Well, that does it for viewer mail. It is time to go into the puzzler. So last month's puzzler, we did get some responses back, and I have to say that we were of the responses we got, and we drew the names, and the person who guessed it here, I'm going to guess on his name, is Matt Biciata. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly, but congratulations, you guessed it correctly. It is Mike Fink Keelboat's background music, and more specifically, this is kind of ironic. He did point out too that the song is Red River or Red River Rock. It's also played in Frontierland and the Wilderness Lodge. But what's really great about that is that it also plays in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles in one of the scenes. And we mentioned our favorite Del Griffith selling the shower curtain ring salesman in last episode. So
wow, look at
unbeknownst to us, look at that. It's like now we're going to have, instead of degrees of Kevin Bacon, we're going to have degrees of
Del Griffith.
Del Griffith, yes.
Retro movie references.
Retro movie references. So, yeah, absolutely. So there we go. So Matt Pisada, congratulations.
He won the Christmas ornament.
He won the Christmas ornament. Yes.
Yes.
The eccentric Mickey circle head Christmas ornament. So we'll be getting in touch with you and getting that out to you shortly. And all the other prizes have been shipped for anybody else that read. So let's talk about this month's puzzler. We'll listen to it in a second here. But JT, you've got the prize for this month. Tell everybody about the prize.
It is a fabulous prize, actually not related at all to this week's episode.
No, it's related to last week's. We're always kind of a month behind. Who knows? Maybe next month we'll give away a spike to the old Fort Wilderness.
Oh my gosh!
Can we dig one up anywhere? That would be cool.
We'll get on it. We
got
man on the ground.
Something. Yeah.
This week's prize is actually I'm going to guess mid to late 70s bar of Dial soap from Disney's Contemporary Resort, and it actually says on the package the Vacation Kingdom of the World, and you have that vintage contemporary logo. It is shag orange in color. It's very, very. It's unused too, so it is in the package
it hasn't
sealed.
Been used and rewrapped.
No, it is. This is an original somebody stole from the resort. So.
Oh man, security's calling us now.
Hotline. Somebody's calling in with the answer
a live
already.
Person coming in right now.
Yes,
we'll take
they're on to
9.
us.
Yeah. We should.
So I see that's got the Vacation Kingdom of the World logo on it with the little Florida on the. So that's early. That's way early. Yeah. That's early 70s.
And I'm going to guarantee it still works. So if you want to pretend now, so you take this bar of soap. When you win, you get your map. You hang it in the bathroom. Right. You're set up. That's it.
Guys, by the time we get a few years into this podcast, we're going to be able to really replicate an entire trip to 1973, 1971. You think about
exactly. It'll be a kit. Build your own 70s trip to Disney.
They'll send away for the kit, and you'll just open it up, and it'll be amazing. In fact, we can store it in basements to give it that old smell too. So, all right, well, we should get on to the puzzler. So let's take a listen to this month's puzzler. All right, so that's this month's puzzler. Now, remember, if you know or want to care to guess the answer to this month's puzzler, write to us at podcast@retrodisneyworld.com. All correct entries will be entered into the drawing for the fabulous prize of the Contemporary soap, as we just discussed, and all correct entries will be entered into the big prize at the end of the year, which will be one of the replica copies of the Paul Hartley map from wdwmap.com. So that will be pulled in December on our December 2015 episode. So
that's a big deal. So
that is a big deal. So
even if you don't want the soap,
right? Even if you want the soap, just work.
Send your answer.
Send your answer in, and don't forget, even if you don't win the soap, if you have the correct answer, you're still entered into the big prize that will be pulled in December 2015. So. All right, so the last segment of the show always is our film restoration. For a thoughtful, once-in-a-lifetime gift, contact Pixel.com to create pristine digital transfers from your old home movies, photos, videotapes, or slides. Now available, they have the Reflectera app that puts all of your photos and videos in chronological order. To get started today, visit Pixel.com or call 1-800-557-3508. So, as you guys know, I've always been touting that I've got some film to look at, and of my own personal trips. And we talked about my grandparents' film, and I always said that I had my own personal film coming for my first trip. But here it is. We've got it. This is what we're going to go over. This is Super 8 film with sound from October 1980, and actually I have my actual passport from that trip right here in my hand. Yeah. So this was the old passport that you would wear around your neck, which more people seem to be doing, but and it had the stamp on the back. It had a hole in here where you'd wear it or tie it to something. And actually, if you look carefully in the video, I don't think my parents entrusted us at 8 and 3 years old at the time or I'm sorry, 8 and 4 to wear it. But we certainly did. And if you look carefully, my grandmother's wearing it in a couple of the shots. So actually, correction, I was 6. I don't know where I was going with 8. But anyway.
Wait, so is that the all attraction walk on whatever you want passport?
Correct. That's why you had to wear it, right? You had to show it. So this says this ticket allows one child the following: transportation to and from from Magic Kingdom via monorail or ferry boat, Magic Kingdom admission for 3 days, unlimited use of all Magic Kingdom attractions except the Shooting Gallery, Discovery Island, and River Country for 3 days, and only valid during Walt Disney World operating hours. Total cost? Anyone care to guess? One child?
$12.50.
Oh, a little higher. It was $19.80. It's a 3-day passport.
Oh, 3 days?
Yeah, this is a 3-day.
$18.50.
Oh, $18.25 after tax.
There we go.
Look at that, nailing it. That's impressive.
But this is the one where, is this during the time when the tickets were still being used, but you could buy?
Correct.
This, because I distinctly remember, like, not to get off track, it's like we went one year and my dad, because he worked for AT&T, got this passport where you didn't need the ticket books. You could go on whatever you want. And I was still fairly young, but the deal was you had to hang it around your neck in order to get through the turnstiles. And I was the most paranoid, like, 10-year-old that year, because I knew that if I lost that thing, I would be killed.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this was gold, right? You had to have this.
And it was literally just this tiny little string.
Yeah,
It's
right.
like-
And that's right. And you could actually see, of those, it was red. You can see how it came off. I have another one of these in the scrapbook. My mom saved everything. Not only do I have this, I'm going to throw out a little tidbit of a little trivia here too. I have the reservation. I have the resort card from the Treehouse Villas. I've got a lot of great ephemera to go through. But I actually have my plane ticket from 1980. Guess how much it cost? 1980. Get your calculator ready on this, Brian. Get your calculator ready. 1980 from Newark, New Jersey, round trip to Orlando, Florida. 1980.
Pan Am?
Eastern.
Oh.
While
1980.
Yeah. What else are you gonna go on? Come on.
That's
I'm
true.
gonna say $180.
180. Okay. How?
$1.
$1,
He's going
Bob.
for the price is right. All right. Going for that.
I'll go
JT.
200. 200. I'm gonna go
JT, it's you. It was 280.
over.
Oh, I was only off by $100.
Yeah. So what does that bring us to in the inflation
In
calculator?
2014, $280 from 1980 would be $802.45.
Wow.
Were
Now,
you flying
2000
first class then?
No, that was coach, my friend. So when people say to you it's expensive to fly, just kind of remember that. I always find that interesting that, I fly down there for under $200 now, or $250.
The miracle of deregulated airlines.
Exactly.
Just don't
So,
Wow. That's insane.
yeah, pretty amazing. So anyway, all right, well, let's get started with this one. So again, this is my personal trip. It is a long running time. It runs nearly a half hour, and I cut out the SeaWorld footage. I've probably got a good 10, 15 minutes of SeaWorld stuff. So what's neat is that this one starts off, my father was a cinematography major in college, so you'll notice that the everything is framed pretty well. But it starts off with us getting on the tram. There is one disappointing thing about this film, is that he didn't film anything at the Treehouse Villas that I can find. But
Those are the trams that went around Fort Wilderness.
right.
That's
So
what
they moved
did.
over there afterwards. Yeah. Yep.
No doors. Just
No doors at all. Just hold on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For years there were no doors,
That's insane.
You may fall out.
Thank lawyers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
which is why you seated your children on the inside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the same thing you do on the train today. When's the train going to get something on the side, right? That'll
that's
be
true.
the end of it. That'll be the end of it when that happens. So yeah, you see my brother in here. There's the monorail. The doors open. My dad did a great job capturing a lot of nice little things that that you wouldn't often see, and that most people didn't. Like he's got a really good eye for those things.
Is that your grandma?
That is my grandma. Yeah.
She's got a sweet brochure in her hand on the monorail.
I wonder where that one went. So yes, around the I think it's around just shy of the 2 minute mark, probably like around 1:30. I'm sorry, 1:40 something. You see my brother just run off and my grandmother go chasing after him. And actually, at the 2:05 mark, I'm wearing if you look carefully, it's waving in the wind as I'm at the top of them.
There's your passport.
You can see the passport waving.
I can. Todd, how old were your grandparents around this time? Because I know they were doing all kinds of traveling. And
they were, right. Let's see. My grandfather was born in, I believe, 1917. So 1980, that would put him at what, 63?
Yeah, okay, 60s, yeah.
63, yeah.
Oh, and there comes the Howling Wolf.
The Howling, yeah.
It's outside of Haunted Mansion.
This is a question for How. Outside the Haunted Mansion, there was always this in the 1980s, but do you not hear it anymore because there's just too much other stuff going on, or did they get rid of it? But I mean, in my dad's film, you can hear this.
So, I guess I haven't been around enough to notice it not there.
Yeah.
Because there were two great things about the outside of the Haunted Mansion. One was the wolf, and the second was the traveling light effect.
Okay, no, this is definitely the wolf. Yeah.
Yeah. Which you could only see at night, where it looked like there was basically like a candle that would go through the conservatory and then past some of the windows. And that effect was broken for years and years and years, and they finally brought it back. There was a period of time in the 90s, too, where I think they added like a strobe light onto the back with a thunderclap and try to make it look like it was lightning, but it didn't really work that great. But I cannot imagine a time, even now, without that howl. It's like I'll have to go back and listen for it, because that was such a to me an integral part of it. It's like not only because of that, but with Rivers of America.
Oh yeah,
right across the way, it worked for that too.
Yeah.
In fact, I want to say that one of the bend in the river right there is named like Wolf's Howl Bend or something to tie in with that.
All right, so we got some research. Now, what's funny is when we would bring these films back and play it for family and friends afterwards, my dad would always crack up because he'd be filming somewhere clear across the park, and in the background you would hear. It was so loud, and the trees were smaller, so the sound carried totally different thing.
Oh yeah,
so,
in the park it's like you'd either hear that or a train whistle inevitably at some place.
Exactly. Now there's something that we've lost along the way at the 4-minute mark, which is the Adventureland Steel Band. Which is another fantastic thing. David Coolidge's video film, he captured that as well. I can also should mention too, if you notice the colors on this film are pretty good. My dad was all Kodak. So, let's see here. Now, also too, another thing we lost at about the 4:50 mark is the barking parrot.
Yeah, there he is.
Moving, zoomed in. He's talking, which is really cool because you just don't get to see that. What year was he taken out? How do you know?
I want to say he was taken out the year that they built World of Disney over in the because he got moved over there for a while, or he might still be there. But I'll drop a little factoid that will hit if we ever do a Pirates of the Caribbean. That him being a Barker bird outside was not his first location.
All right, we're gonna have to wait till we do that episode.
Yeah,
then, right?
So I'll let you chew on that for a while. But
everybody think about that.
He lived somewhere else before that. And when I say it, it will. I think it'll make sense, and some like gears will turn into some people's heads and go, "Oh," and it'll also make sense why they took it out from where it was. But yeah.
Now at 6:55, you can see my brother and I. I'm on the right-hand side there, just playing with the obligatory
shooting at the cameraman.
Well, absolutely. I did that multiple times if you watch, but the obligatory Pirates of the Caribbean gun, you had to buy one. Now those were the ones you could put the cap in.
Oh, they had cap guns.
It took stick caps. Do you remember stick caps? They were plastic. You'd peel it off. I think you either licked them or they had adhesive on it. I can't remember. And you'd get one shot out of it. So, and from there, my dad goes into the obligatory parade, which I'm not big on parades now. Wasn't big on parades then, so we're going to just zoom by that. Now, an interesting thing to note is that there's a great footage of us going around the park. Now, this was October. I have the dates here. Hold on. Let me reference. This was October 14th, 16th, and 18th, 1980. Now, if you watch carefully in the film, they are in chronological order, and you can kind of see how one day turns into the next, and you can figure it out. But so this first day that we're working on here up to the 10-minute mark or so is still October 14th. You'll see Big Thunder Mountain come around, and you can see it from where the Frontierland station is. And that was a huge thing because it was under its testing at that time. And my grandfather and my father got to ride it. I haven't identified the exact frames of where they are, but they are on some of the footage of later on of them riding it. So this was the test, and you can see a lot of everything's working. The possums are swinging around, the Roadrunner and the Snake are going at it. So it's pretty neat. But yeah, because that didn't officially open, I believe, until November. So that was part of the soft opening.
There's an example of child abuse in here too.
Is there
at
what
the 13-minute mark? Somebody's holding the button on the water fountain so your brother can drink from it. And drinking fountain water should be considered some kind of abuse.
Okay, so I'm gonna. Do you know who's holding it?
I think it's your grandfather, but
is it my grandfather?
So. I love Florida water.
Oh yeah, and my brother even puts his hand in there.
It's great because it's like drinking from an old shoe.
Yeah, it's swampy.
It's drinking pirate water is what it is. It's the same water. It's pirate water, as far as I'm concerned. Now, at the 16 mark, it looks like there's some of the stage show at the Fantasy Fair, too, or Fantasyland Fair. What was that called? I forget what that was.
Mickey's got big hands in the 80s, it seems.
I want to break in and say that I've gotten an answer from the authority on all things Haunted Mansion, MK, at MK Pony on Twitter. Foxy Hooves says the sound is still there, the Howling Wolf, but it's been rather low these past few months. So...
Well, I suggest we find that volume knob and
crank it up. They can think it's Rapunzel from her tower next to it howling.
Interesting thing here, too, is I had my heart set on one attraction in 1980, and that was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And this was before the time of the internet. You could know what was closed. Look at the 1642 mark. The entire lagoon was drained as we go over from the Skyway. I was crushed. And it took me until 1986 to ride it once again. So, and there's some great shots of Tomorrowland after that too, coming in. And also too, you can see that it is called the Goodyear Grand Prix Raceway. My dad's got a nice shot of that. And that first day rounds out around the 19-minute mark as we head.
There's some beautiful Main Street in here too, with all the vehicles going, the omnibus. That's really some nice stuff in here.
Yep. I have another set of film coming from my dad that he took with my mom. It was previous to me being born, so it had to be 72 or 73, and he stood on Main Street and photographed filmed just the signs. So you'll see the Emporium sign with the lights going around it, and then it goes to the bake shop, and he's got all these in order, and he's got some of the great Fantastic Pans, and that's another one that I've got to get out there we can talk about. It's really cool because he was definitely playing with his artistic merits that he had learned in cinematography school, or whatever you want to call it. So
a bunch of balloons at the 19-minute mark. It's one of my favorite things on this video because it's before they started with the balloons that are in Mickey ears inside the circle. They were just the shaped Mickey ears.
The shape.
And the bunch of balloons in here. I mean, the only thing missing is Gonzo. Because this guy looks like I don't know how they get a balloon out of the bunch.
He's just going to fly. Yeah, just choose one and try and get it out. Right before that, actually, you see my brother riding one of the old metal strollers, which is classic.
Child abuse again.
Well, not only that, then I shoot my dad with the snap. Snap gun. So yeah, just take a nice shot at my dad and the camera. Now you have to imagine this camera weighed I don't know how much. It had a boom microphone on it that with a telescoping thing it would stick out like 2.5 feet. It recorded only in mono. I've since converted this to play on both speakers, but when the next day or 2 days later we started off at the Empress Lily. And had the character breakfast there, and this is when the paddle wheel in the back used to rotate, and you can see these big fabric patches on my brother and I that said "Hello, my name is," which I never kind of understood because the characters don't talk to you. So why is your name on your chest? I don't get that. I still have it. It's in the scrapbook.
Oh wow!
So Now they look huge on me, but okay, I was 6 years old. So, but if you look at it on my brother, I mean, he's he's 4, and the thing is just. Or no, actually, he was 2 there. I'm sorry. It's huge, and there's more balloons there at the at the end of 21 mark. Yeah. Now, there's something really cool coming up, and we went over to the Village Marketplace. Look at around 22:20 or something. The whatchamacallit. How you played on that?
Oh,
right?
many times.
Yeah.
On this day in this film, he was there actually.
that would be really odd. That would be, yeah, there's a pic. My dad even comes down the slide around, I don't know, somewhere at 23 or so. But and then there's some more shots of the Empress Lily, and you can see the wheel actually turning, which is really cool. So, what else did you guys find? Anything else good? I think we're around 24 minutes or so now.
Oh, I see the Light Bite logo behind the whatchamacallit.
The what?
Light Bite logo, the logo of the restaurant that was right there. It's this really weird thing with like a bowler hat, and then the words kind of like form the shape of the face. Like as a kid, it's like I was intrigued by a lot of the graphic design, like in the store signs at the Buena Vista Shopping Village.
Yeah, you do get some great in the minutes preceding it. Your dad takes some great pans of the area down there. Because I think for people who've only ever seen it as downtown Disney, and we've touched on it before, but I mean, Lake Buena Vista Shopping Village was just gorgeous and serene and classy and everything that downtown Disney is not.
That's a great way to sum it up. That's perfect. So yeah, now mine has frozen up here. I don't know
mine
why,
has
when
too,
you get in.
So.
Yeah, I don't know why it's having. I loaded if you go right to Vimeo, it maybe.
Where are you holding the birds at? I jumped ahead here. Mine's still playing.
Okay, hold on. We'll get to that in a second, JT. So around the 24-minute mark, this is kind of fun. We take out this not a pontoon boat. We take out one of the little crafts, which is I don't know, it probably seats about 6 to 8 people officially. And there was a scene in here that I always thought as I mentioned earlier, my grandmother chasing my brother was funny, and you see me piloting the boat here. But at some point in here, my grandfather sits down with my brother, and my father, you see, he just reaches over and slams the throttle straight up. My brother cranks the wheel to the right or left, and the boat just starts going in circles. And you hear my grandfather go, "What? Where are we going? Where are we going?" And literally, you just see the background swing around, which was great. And I think at some point it's another film. It was actually video. My dad just kept making this pirate voice when we rented it, like in 1986, and my mom got really frustrated at him. "David, stop that!" And he's "Arr, arr," He always wanted to be a pirate. I don't know. So yeah, what I'm speaking of is at the 25:30 mark. You can see my father just reach over and gun it, and then and my grandfather looks around. He has no clue where he's going, and they're just spinning. I always got a kick out of that. One of the things I remember. So I think after that, you see, we actually take, instead of taking the monorail later on, we take over the one of the other boats, and we head over to answer JT's question. Where am I holding birds?
Discovery Island?
Discovery Island, that's it. Yeah. I went to Discovery Island. It was really cool. I remember walking the paths. I went there a couple times, maybe 2-3 times. I went there in 86 or so, and 88, I think, as well. And even up to the 92 maybe somewhere. But yeah, they had the birds, and I remember the giant tortoises that you'd walk along the beach. And there are toucans and flowers, and there's a shot, I think, towards the end of where you can see the wrecked ship.
Yeah, it's still there, but doesn't look that good.
It doesn't look that good anymore, but you can see the boardwalk, and the walkways were really neat because it was boardwalk, and they had the ropes going from it and everything, which was really cool. So, but yeah, that about rounds it out right there.
That's
so
a good chunk.
Like I said,
I've never seen Discovery Island look like that before, so that's neat.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of birds on it.
I see like some kind of furry animal. What is that?
I don't know.
It's like a small reindeer or something.
Oh, yeah.
I've never been there. I don't remember. Awesome.
So, yeah. So hopefully I'll get the next one up. Like I said, I cut the SeaWorld stuff out, which is really just the Shamu shows, and we're not all about retro Shamu here, so. Yeah, but I'll have to find I'll get the stuff out and get this 1972 film out that my father took. That's got really great shots. So, you know, yeah, Brian, if you like the shots that you saw there in the pans, you'll definitely like the other
And
one.
you've got a rarity there because the boat that took you over to Discovery Island is one of those Osceola class sidewheelers. So yeah.
Oh, it is. I didn't even realize. Oh, wow. So because it is shown. I didn't even notice that because my dad does have the film of it pulling up to the dock, right? What mark is that? Did you
I'm trying to get back there again. About 28, 20.
28, 20. Okay. That's
I'm
cool.
sorry, 26. 26, 20. Yeah.
26, 20? Okay. Didn't even realize it. I didn't even notice that. So, ironically, I restored this. It's on my server at home. I'll have to play on the TV. I haven't sat down and watched the full 30 minutes yet. I've been so busy recently. So yeah. Now, how you and I probably need to talk about one of the next films coming up. I know we're going to release it pretty soon, right? The Home of Future Living.
I'm furiously trying to write something for that, so that'll be out soon.
Okay, so for our listeners, that's going to be the next film we're going to release. I may release the 16 millimeter promo film in the meantime, but do keep your eye out for that on retrodisneyworld.com. So. All right, so once again, the film restoration segment was brought to you by Pixel.com. And also for a 10% off coupon, visit retrodisneyworld.com/imageworks. And from there, you can learn how to use a coupon to get 10% off your film transfers, movies, videotapes, and slides. So, well, guys, that wraps up another episode. Cabins, Coonskins,
Campsites.
What was the other one? Camping. That's went through an hour and 20 minutes here, and I forgot what we were talking about. So, all right, guys. So we gotta decide on what to do for the next episode. Now, JT, you chose, Hal chose, and Brian's already chosen. But I know it came around to me, and I had an idea, but we've stayed in this part of the Vacation Kingdom of the World for 3-4 episodes now. I think it's time to move on. Don't you agree, Brian? I think we kind of discussed that.
It's time.
Yeah. So
the
where are we going?
time has come to head to where the 21st century began on October 1st, 1982, Epcot Center.
That's right. You can hear the cheers going up from our listeners. Yes, they're doing it. They're moving over. So we haven't nailed down the exact topic, but we figured we'd take it to a different time period and start going over to Epcot and
if there's something you want to hear on Epcot, then tweet at us or email us and let us know.
So yeah, we want to just wrap it up here. Say thank you to our sponsors. Again, as Pixel, we mentioned, sponsors the film restoration portion. Chad Lincecum at wdwmap.com and Chris Buckholz Attraction Posters. We'll post a link with this. And if you are interested in sponsoring any other part of the podcast, feel free to give us a shout at info@retrodisneyworld.com. I think, JT, you wanted to give a shout-out to some people that helped
I went
you as
to
well.
fortfiends.net. They're kind of the authority on Fort Wilderness. Got some facts from them. I was really hoping for some of the original Fort Wilderness guests to chime in, but I didn't get any of them to really... So if they're out there and they want to email us some facts we messed up or something, please do so.
I'll tell you what. Why don't we get this posted over on there? You got the account. Let's post it. Say, hey, here's our Fort Wilderness episode. Care to comment? We'll take their comments and post them up in the next episode, as we always do. Right? Exactly. So, all right. Before we wrap up here, one final word. You can find us at Retro WDW on Twitter, and we're also on Facebook if you search Retro Disney World. And also, as always, visit us at retrodisneyworld.com. We appreciate all of our listeners. If at any time we'd appreciate a review at iTunes and give us a shout out. If you have any questions, you can email us at podcast@retrodisneyworld.com. So, guys, let them know where they can find you, and then we'll sign off for the evening.
I'm hoagiesgarage.com if you want to read about my vehicle reviews, product reviews, that sort of stuff.
You can find me at liquidluau.com. You can get some of my Disney-inspired cocktail recipes there and link off to some of my other sites.
And you can find me on Twitter at Brian P. Miles, and that's Brian and Miles with an I.
And I will say, if you follow all four of us, you'll see some general banter and
yes,
different things going on that we were trying to piece things together for episodes. So you'll get kind of some hints about what's going on for the next episode or research that we found for previous episodes, all the above. But again, we thank all of our listeners greatly for listening to us. And Brian, take us out.
Henry from the Country Bears Jamboree would say, enough of this chit-chat, yik-yak, and flim-flam. See you next time, folks.
What do you say, Sammy?
I say, y'all come back. You hear? We hope that you'll be coming back again. That you'll drop in to see us now and then. We've done our very best to please with just the bare necessities. We hope that you'll be coming back again.
Come again.
Come
again. Anytime.
The welcome mat is always out, and seeing you is fine.
We hope that you'll be coming back again. That you'll drop in and see us now and then.
We had such fun we're gonna cry.
We just can't bear to say goodbye. We hope that you'll be coming back again. Y'all come back, yeah?
Don't forget to gather your belongings.
And your husband, too. It's been good to have you.
So long, folks.